Now, I would like to welcome U.S. House Representative for Pennsylvania, Brian Fitzpatrick. Mr. Patrick was a former Special Assistant United States Attorney. In addition, he served as a National Supervisor for the Federal Bureau of Investigation Public Corruption Unit. He's an alumnus of LaSalle University and Pennsylvania State University, and he succeeded elder brother Mike Fitzpatrick to represent Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District. Please give a warm welcome to Brian Fitzpatrick.
Good evening, APPNA, and I'm glad to be here this evening. And as the introductor mentioned, I'm succeeding my brother Mike. I like to tell people that I actually ran against him in the primary, and I got better ballot position and won. So, no, my brother Mike term limited himself and moved on, and I now have the opportunity to serve the great people of Bucks and Montgomery County at a pretty critical juncture in American history. I think most of us would agree, but I want to thank you for inviting me this evening, and I want to talk about a few important topics. And I want to thank my friend and colleague, Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who's doing a really, really good job in working on common goals. And he mentioned the issue of opioid abuse, which I want to touch on. But more importantly, Josh is in Harrisburg, and I'm in Washington, D.C., and I can tell you, having just left a pretty tumultuous week in Washington. It's a hard week for anybody down there. It's especially a hard week when you're trying to fight against what you believe to be a flawed healthcare policy, against the gravitational pull that's going in the opposite direction. It was a very interesting week, to say the least, but I think it ended the right way. I really do. Because what I've been an advocate for from day one is to have a bipartisan solution. And I know that can be a dirty word sometimes. I understand that. But that's what we need. When you have health insurance and health care, which represents 20% of our economy, 20% of the U.S. economy, roughly, is spent on health care. If it were its own economy, it would be the 5th largest economy in the world, behind Germany. We spend so much money on health care. And it's so critical because every single one of us that's living and breathing and walking on this planet is going to grow old, is going to get sick, and we're going to need the help of the people in this room, physicians. So why not bring everybody to the table, all stakeholders, physicians, patients, insurance companies, pharmaceutical experts, and try to come up with a solution to the problem. Because what I believe, and I believe this to my core, is that the nature of American politics, the pendulum will always swing back and forth. Always. One party to the other. What I believe is critical is that for once, we bring everybody to the table together for problems that we all face. Every single person in this country faces. Nobody's immune from getting sick, getting injured. And come up with a solution together. One of my the very first organization I joined when I was sworn in to be a member of Congress was a group called No Labels. And for those of you that choose to be active in the legislative cause, I encourage you to look them up and consider getting active in that organization. What the No Labels Coalition, the Problem Solvers Caucus is, it's a combination, joint group effort of Democrats and Republicans who put country first ahead of everything else. And we are looking to build a coalition in Congress that is the governing majority in Congress. Because you hear a lot of noise from what we call the wings. There's another area which I like to call the silent middle, which I believe represents the majority of people in this country and the majority of people around the world. People that just want problems solved. I want to address, Josh had mentioned immigration issues. So I serve on, Speaker Ryan appointed me to 3 committees. I'm on the Homeland Security Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, and the Small Business Committee, which are, I would say, all relevant to all of us assembled here. But I want to focus specifically on foreign affairs because the subcommittee that I'm assigned to is the Middle East, which covers several countries, including Pakistan. And my one ask of everybody in this room tonight I'm not telling anybody anything you don't already know. We have a lot of challenges in this country. We have a lot of challenges around the world. And no country is exempt from that. Roughly 195 countries on this planet. And I would say most of them, if not all of them, are either more dangerous or more economically depressed than they have been in years past. And it's incumbent upon all of us, every single one of us, to come together to try to fix those problems. And I can tell you as a representative in Congress, and I don't speak for myself, I speak for many of them, that we need your voice. We need your input, particularly from those in the immigrant community. Josh had mentioned the immigration policy. Another thing that I made headlines on, unfortunately. I don't always like to make headlines in areas like this, but I opposed the policy. I came out, I'm 2 months into this job. I'm a freshman member of Congress as a member of the Republican Party. And I spoke out against that immigration ban. Because I know from my prior career as an FBI Special Agent that terrorism is not a regional threat. It's not. It is a global threat. There are a lot of really bad people that live in really nice places, like Brussels and Paris and Belgium, Copenhagen, London. And there's some really, really good people that live in really, really tough places. And it is an oversimplification to try to focus on one region of the world and say that's where the threat is. The threat is global, and we need to treat it as a global threat. Moreover, we are a nation of immigrants. I stand before you tonight as a grandson of Irish immigrants. And my grandparents came to this country for the same reason that either yourselves or your ancestors came to this country, because they love their families, they love their children, and they want a better way for them. And we ought to respect that as a nation. Just down the road here is where our country truly was born. In 1776 with the Declaration of Independence, and then in 1787 when a group of people got together down the road, and they drafted, they debated, they fought for, and they signed and ultimately ratified the U.S. Constitution. The two things that are embodied in that Constitution: liberty and equality. That's what we stand for in this country. And we should focus on the equality point, and we should remember, all of us, that we are a country of immigrants. That's what our country was founded on. Every single one of us, with the exception of those who can trace their ancestry back to Native Americanism, are immigrants. And we ought to respect that, we ought to cherish it. And I want to close with saying, on the topic of bipartisanship, the No Labels Caucus, the Problem Solvers Caucus, I want to talk about the freshman class, which I'm a member of. I came from outside the system in the FBI, working global counterterrorism around the globe, throughout Europe and Africa and Asia and the Middle East, in support of and in defense of the Constitution of the United States. We understand the threat very, very, very well. My freshman colleagues come from all sorts of backgrounds. And we got together after the election, but before getting sworn in, we had a conference at Harvard University. And we all got the chance to build relationships with each other outside of the U.S. Capitol. There's a lot of really, really tough work that gets done in the Capitol. But we got a chance to know each other and get to learn about each other outside of the Capitol. And I got to tell you, when you build those personal relationships, and this is what I think the key is for members of Congress and really for all of us, when you build personal relationships, you learn about their family, you ask about their kids, their spouses, their parents. And that's the foundation. I can tell you, every time I see a fellow freshman on the floor of the House of Representatives, that's what we start with. That's what we start with. How was your weekend? Did you get to spend time with your kids? How's your wife doing? How's your husband doing? That's what we start with. The work comes second. And when that personal relationship is the foundation, everything else is better. You speak to each other in a civil manner. You speak to each other from a position of mutual respect. And if there's one thing that I'm concerned about more than anything right now, that I'm going to work to fight against, and I ask everybody in this room to fight against, is our dialogue, is our civility. How do we talk to each other? How do we treat each other? if somebody has a different opinion of ours than ours, it doesn't make them stupid. It doesn't make them a bad person. It means they're different. Of course, with the exception of those coming from a position of hate, we don't accept that. But people that think differently ought to have a seat at the table. And that's what I've been trying to instill amongst my colleagues in the Republican Party and my colleagues in the Democrat Party, which is why I think that No Labels Caucus is so incredibly important. And I believe healthcare has been the issue commanding everybody's attention right now. It's an incredibly important issue. And what I'm going to suggest is that those in the No Labels Caucus and those that want to enter into a spirit of bipartisanship, we tackle that healthcare issue. We bring physicians to the table, we bring patients to the table, we bring everybody that understands the issue to the table. It's very, very, very important. So with that, I want to thank a couple people, Raza Bakari and Umar Farouk, who are my advisors on several foreign affairs, but including the nation of Pakistan. Thank you very much for inviting me, Umar and Raza. And please let your voices be heard. And know that they are being heard. They are. This week is evidence of that. Our nation rose up this week. I can tell you because our office's phones have never stopped ringing. And my staff is in need of a vacation right now. They are. But your voices are being heard. Please let them be heard. And please, when you're fostering relationships, and I know everybody in this room already does that, speak to each other civilly and with respect, because that's the key to solving all of our problems, really. If we can understand and try to see each other's problems through each other's eyes, I think that's going to go a long way to help fixing our nation's problems. I am here for you, and I'm honored that you invited me tonight, even though I'm a Republican. Because you know what? You got friends in the Republican Party. So, thank you very much.